Hi everybody, I'm Skip. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, where sometimes we get the date wrong and we have to restart the show. And that's what happened earlier. We got the date wrong. So we watched old 16mm, like I said, and so we watched part 7, the exciting conclusion of Shower of Roses, which looked to be a religious epic about some nuns, some beautiful Roman Catholic iconography in there. It's pretty great. Even if you're not Roman Catholic, visually it's just fascinating. Here's a question we get a lot here at AV Geeks, and that is, can I sit on a cloud? And the answer is, well, I'm just going to let this film answer it for you.
I wonder...
What do you wonder, Wonder Cat?
I wonder... Can I sit on a cloud?
Can you sit on a cloud? Well, you can answer that question if you know what clouds are made of.
What are clouds made of?
If you're curious enough, you can find out.
I'd need an airplane for that. Clouds are too high.
Clouds are high, all right, but sometimes mountains are even higher. Let's go to the mountains.
Hey, that's a cloud. If we could get there, I could find out what it's made of. And then I could find out if I can sit on it.
Here's your cloud.
And it's like a fog.
Right. A fog is just a cloud that's close to the ground. And the fog feels wet, doesn't it?
So, the cloud, or the fog, must be made of water.
Yes, that's right.
Well, if a cloud is just like a fog, then I guess I can't sit on it. But if a cloud is made of water, like a lake is, could I float on it? Boats float on water. So do people. So can I. So, can I float on a cloud?
Well, the water that's in a lake is different from the water that's in a cloud. Water in a lake can spray up into the air and separate into drops that fall back into the lake. Water in a cloud is always in drops, but not nearly as big as the drops in the spray. Water drops in a cloud are so tiny and weigh so little that the moving air can hold them up. They seem to float in the air.
Does that mean that I can't float on a cloud?
That's right.
But I wonder, where does cloud water come from?
Most cloud water comes from the oceans.
It does? How?
Well, look on the rocks over there.
At those puddles that the waves made?
Yes. What do you think will happen if no more ocean water falls into them?
Well, I guess after a while they'll dry up, sort of disappear.
That's right. If we could speed up what happens, it would look like this.
Where does the water go?
It goes into the air. The water changes into invisible water vapor. It evaporates. But not just the water from the puddles evaporates into the air. Water from the ocean and lakes and rivers and everything that's wet does this all the time.
Including me?
That's right. You'll get dry because the water will evaporate from you. The warm sun helps to make the water evaporate.
I think I understand. The warm sun helps water evaporate into the air. It changes into invisible water vapor.
Very good.
But how does that water vapor change back to water and get into the clouds?
Well, water doesn't get into the clouds. The clouds are water.
Then how does the water vapor we can't see become a cloud we can see?
Why, you've made it happen many times.
I have? When?
On cold days, with the warm, moist air you breathe out of your body.
Hey, I made a cloud.
When the water vapor in your warm breath is cooled, some of it changes into a cloud of tiny water droplets.
So that's what must happen with clouds.
That's right. You see, high up where the clouds are, the air is cooler than it is near the ground. When moist air gets cool enough, the invisible water vapor in it changes to tiny droplets that make clouds.
But I wonder, why are there different kinds of clouds? Some clouds are fluffy and white, and some are dark gray, almost black.
Well, it all has to do with those tiny droplets that clouds are made of. The clouds that first form when the droplets come out of the air are white clouds, like the clouds your breath makes. The white clouds are fair weather clouds. But if more and more of the tiny water drops come out of the air, and the cloud gets bigger, the drops bump together and get bigger too. Now the clouds get darker and darker. These are rain clouds. And finally, when the drops are much bigger and much heavier than they were when the cloud first formed, the drops of water are heavy enough to fall to the ground. And do you know what you get?
Rain.
Exactly right.
But I was just wondering, if a cloud is water, how can it snow? I know snow is frozen water, but how do we get snowflakes?
Well, if the temperature of the air is below freezing, the water vapor doesn't change into tiny water droplets. Instead, the water vapor changes into tiny crystals of ice. These ice crystals make snow clouds. The crystals are the beginnings of snowflakes. They get bigger in the cloud, and after a while, if they get heavy enough, they gently fall to the ground. But if the air that they fall through is warm enough, the snowflakes may melt on the way down and change to rain. Rain and snow are just different forms of water falling from the clouds.
Then why are there still clouds after it rains?
For the same reason there are clouds before it rains. The water drops in the clouds aren't heavy enough to fall, but clouds are changing all the time, whether it rains or not. And if we could speed up how they change, it would look like this. Their shapes change. The wind blows them from one place to another place. They bump together and break apart. The clouds are always changing, but what they are doesn't change.
I know. They're all made of some kind of water, and I can't sit on a cloud. But I can sit on what used to be a cloud when it's frozen and on the ground and made into a snowman. Like this. But not for very long. It's cold.
Okay, I get it. Wonder Cat is really annoying. Maybe I didn't hear it before, like when I was showing a couple of Wonder Cats in a row. But yeah, we're gonna have to ration those out. Those are fascinating, but that cat won't shut up. Will not shut up. We talked a little bit about the Earth. Here's a film about the face of the Earth. Enjoy.
Millions and millions of years ago, proud of cosmic dust, a fiery Earth was born. There were violent explosions on the Earth. Gases and vapors rose out of its body, and hot lava flowed over its skin. Slowly, the Earth began to cool. Millions of years passed, while the outer part thickened and hardened into solid, but still very hot rock. The gases and vapors formed the Earth's atmosphere. They made a heavy blanket of clouds, beneath which the Earth continued to cool. Then the rains fell. And it rained for a long, long time. The water ran into the hollows, and the first seas were formed. Finally, the clouds parted. The face of the Earth changes because of a conflict between two groups of geologic forces. The first group, like the waves crashing on the land, attack the Earth from the outside. Little by little, they wear the Earth down. Because it takes a long time for these wearing down forces to change the Earth, we cannot always see them doing it. Nevertheless, they are at work everywhere. In polar regions and in the highest mountains, glaciers form, and underneath the slow-moving tongues of glacial ice, a great force is at work, breaking up the rocks, gouging and scarring the face of the Earth. In the desert, the sun's heat is at work, baking the rocks and drying out the mud flats. In dust storms, the force of wind is at work, sweeping up and shifting the dry topsoil and sand. Rocks, split by freezing water and growing roots, roll down by the force of gravity. With the rain, running water goes to work, washing away the land. Of all the wearing down forces, running water is the most important. The force of running water in streams slowly gnaws away the rocks, cuts into the face of the Earth, and carves out gullies. In thousands of years, it may deepen and widen these gullies into huge, steep-walled canyons. If there were only these wearing down forces at work, long before now the land would have been worn away completely and covered entirely with water. But there is a group of building up forces also at work. They draw their energy from deep inside the earth, and they are slowly building the land up from within. They even raise land out of the sea. The highest mountain ranges now stand where once there were shallow seas. We know this is true because when we dig into some of the rock layers, we find seashell fossils buried there. Sometimes these building up forces break the rock layers and push them out of line. And sometimes the pressure from these building up forces squeezes the layers into great up and down folds. Many minerals formed in hidden crevices down inside the earth are raised from the depths by the building up forces. Pyrite, Veracite, cuprite, Neptunite, dioptase, agate, malachite, and many others. Volcanic explosions build up the earth in another way. They blast holes through weak places in the crust and pour out hot lava. This lava eventually cools, hardens, and becomes new land. At such volcanic explosions, geologists have an opportunity to examine directly some of the forces at work inside the earth. Just as we cannot see this waterfall actually cutting into the rock, so we cannot always see the conflict between the building up and the wearing down forces. The conflict, however, is going on all the time. Let's see some of the results of this conflict. Here, in the Painted Desert, while the building up forces within the earth were slowly raising the land up, the force of running water was wearing it down and fashioning the hills. We can see the forms cut by rain and streams. In the petrified forest, the wearing down forces have uncovered giant trees that were buried for a long time under the earth. While they were buried, the trees were changed to rock by the work of underground water rich in minerals. The high plateaus and deep canyons of the southwestern United States are in a region that was raised many times over millions of years by the building up forces. In Grand Canyon, The force of down-cutting streams has carved a trench 10 miles across and 1 mile deep into the face of the earth, and has laid bare some of the oldest rocks in North America. In Zion Canyon, the wearing down forces have cut through these ancient sand dunes that are piled one on top of another. After desert winds had heaped up and buried the loose grains, mineral cement changed the sand into hard layers of sandstone. In Bryce Canyon, younger rocks are being worn away by rain and wind. Because of their weakness, they take on these strange up and down shapes. Though Bryce Canyon looks quiet and still, here as everywhere, the struggle is going on between the building up forces and the wearing down forces. In this conflict lies the story of the Earth's changing face.
There's a great metaphor for life. There's the building up forces and the wearing down forces. And here at AV Geeks, we try to maintain a balance of that, and hopefully a little bit more of the building up and less of the wearing down. But, you know, some days it's all about wearing down. So some of you might say that I am wearing your patience down with these series of films that I'm showing. And some days are like that. I'm trying to get you ready for an extended weekend, maybe. We've shown other films on this topic, but this is Bailey's Films interpretation of Silk Makers of Japan. Enjoy.
One of nature's wonder products is silk. The work of caterpillars is transformed by the hands of man into beautiful fabrics, like satin and velvet, like taffeta and brocade. These are only a few of the fine fabrics made of silk. The first silk fabric was woven in China about 5,000 years ago. Much later, the silk industry was carried to Europe on the same road that was to be traveled by Marco Polo. In about the year 200 AD, silk production was introduced in Korea and then Japan. Today, more than half of the world's silk is produced in Japan. The Hachioji district is one of the many silk-producing areas in Japan. Here, the Shimatsu family, like many other farm families, makes part of its livelihood from silk. The Shimatsus grow many mulberry trees on their farm because the leaves are needed to feed silk caterpillars. Mulberry leaves are the only food that silk caterpillars will eat. And the better the leaves, the better the silk. The Shimatsus have 3 fields of mulberry bushes. one for harvesting in the spring, one for summer, and one for autumn. This way they can raise caterpillars and sell the cocoons 3 times a year. When the leaves are large and tender, tiny black kagos are hatched from eggs. The kago is the larva stage of the silk moth. Actually, the kagos are very tiny. These pictures are greatly enlarged so we can see them better. In the next few weeks, Mr. Shimatsu will gather many baskets full of leaves. The mulberry leaves are cut into small pieces to feed the kagos. As the caterpillars grow larger, they take larger pieces of leaves, which are chopped in a simple machine. Soon the caterpillars will be so large that the leaves will not be chopped at all. During the first 24 hours of their lives, the young caterpillars eat several times their own weight. In a few days, they will turn from black to white. They have begun an amazing growth period. In just 4 weeks, they grow to be about 10,000 times larger than when they were first hatched. That's why they must have large quantities of leaves to eat. It is also why their skins just can't grow fast enough to keep up with them. So every 3 or 4 days, the caterpillars will stop eating, sleep for 1 day, and shed their skins. This happens 4 times during this period of growth. Although they are often called silk worms, they are really silk caterpillars. Their appetites are enormous. But soon these caterpillars will lose all interest in food. They will move around nervously, but won't eat a thing. This means that their silk glands are full of liquid silk, and they are looking for a suitable place to spin their cocoons. At this stage, some farmers still use the old method of placing the caterpillars on newspapers on the floor and covering them with a mat made of rice straw. But the Shimatsu family has a better method. They have wooden racks with holes just the right size for spinning cocoons. Each caterpillar finds a vacancy and moves in. It begins to anchor itself in place with a sticky substance which comes from a tiny hole near the mouth. The substance is an extremely thin thread of liquid silk which quickly hardens in the air. The silk is covered with a natural glue called sarracin. Sarracin is very important in every step of silk making because it holds the threads together. The caterpillar continues to spin until it is completely enclosed in a ball of silk called a cocoon. It takes about 3 days to complete a cocoon. During this period, caterpillars are especially sensitive to loud noises, so everyone is careful to speak softly. Any loud noises would cause them to stop spinning. Several days later, the cocoons are removed from the racks. If we look inside one of them, we will see that the caterpillar has become much smaller and has turned into a pupa. If it were left alone, the pupa would turn into a moth and work its way out of the cocoon. Of course, this ruins the cocoon. The female moth mates with a male and lays about 500 eggs. This completes the life cycle, so the moth soon dies. However, only certain people who are licensed by the government allow the moths to come out of the cocoons. Mrs. Shimatsu keeps some of her cocoons until winter, when she will have time to reel off the silk thread and weave it into beautiful cloth. Weaving is very slow on a hand loom. Most of the cocoons are sold to a factory called a steam filiature. Here they are given a heat treatment to kill the pupas inside them. They are carefully inspected. The ones that are damaged or discolored are taken out. Boiling water softens the sericin or glue so that the threads can be unwound easily. The agitator works back and forth until the end of each strand is loose. As the end is found, it's fed into this machine and is wound onto a reel. Each cocoon will give a single strand about a half-mile long. The strand is so small that 7 are wound together to make a larger thread. The natural sericin holds the strands together. The newest machines do more of these steps automatically, so that each worker can produce many times more raw silk. The threads are rewound onto larger frames and are then twisted into skeins. Almost all of this work is done by girls. Most of them are farm girls who have come to the factory to earn more money. Living in the dormitory is quite different from life on the farm. Their rooms and food are furnished by the company. After a few years, the girls usually get married or return home. When there is work to do, the girls are on the job. "30 skeins of raw silk are packed into a bundle called a book. And 29 books make up a bale. Before they are sold, the bales of raw silk must go to a government testing bureau. This is necessary to keep Japan's silk the finest in the world. Samples from every 10th bale are removed. They are tested for moisture. for size, for strength, and finally, for weight. Some of the approved silk is shipped to other countries, so it is packed very carefully. The bale is first covered with a cloth bag, then a stiff paper bag, and finally a heavy matting. This shipment will go through the Panama Canal to New York City. It is loaded into special compartments on the ship because each bale is worth several $100s. Most of Japan's silk is not exported, however. In Kyoto and other cities, the raw silk is woven into cloth. The threads are doubled and twisted. The saracen is removed. Although much of the weaving is done automatically, it still takes people to thread the looms and the shuttles. This loom is sending 2 shuttles back and forth. The finished cloth is carefully inspected for flaws before it is washed in a river. Some rivers in Japan have just the right chemicals for fixing the dyes. Silk making in Japan is a wonderful combination of old methods and new methods. The work of nature and the work of man. Silk was once as valuable as gold because it was the world's first truly fine material. Its beauty and usefulness have kept pace with the changing times, so that today, as for centuries past, silk is still known as the queen of fabrics.
So that suffered for what we call a wow in audio. So basically, they when they scanned this film, I got this off of Internet Archive. The optical head was ingesting the audio, but there was a change in the speed, and it's fine for when it's getting the images because it's getting single frame at a time. But for audio, it's like it's like spinning a record with your finger. It's like, oh, I got it pretty consistent, but then you're like, nope, not quite. So that's kind of where that wow comes from. So there you go. Okay, we're gonna do this. Behind me, I have Cintel, and I have a bunch of TV commercials that we tried to watch last week before last. I can't remember. But it has Mr. Belvedere in it. But we're going to watch the rest of them. And I'm going to use that technique that I used last time. So we're just going to soldier through them. There's lots of great commercials here. I think there's some duplicates in here too. There's some beer commercials. There are some delicious Sara Lee commercials. There's a wide variety of different things here. So, enjoy. And I should say, if you like what you saw today, or you like in general, hit the thumbs up button, the like button, subscribe. If this is not floating your boat today, you can go to avgeeks.com, and we have a 24/7 channel there that you can go to and watch other shows that we've done or other things we've digitized. You can go to patreon.com/avgeeks to donate, or just buy some coffee at ko-fi.com/avgeeks. We're going to do a show on Monday, even though it's a holiday, and I'm going to try to figure something out. It might work, it might not work. We'll see. Yeah. Anyways, this is probably going to run long, so enjoy. TV commercials.
This cannot be. It must be incredibly light. It's incredibly light. One must taste the real cream cheese. And the strawberries. They are succulent.
Sara Lee Strawberry French Cheesecake. It's an international delight.
Sally, I kill myself. But first, one more bite.
Who ate the Sara Lee? Who ate the piece that I saved for me? Who just couldn't resist? Who ate the Sara Lee?
Sara Lee All Butter Pound Cake. Nobody can resist that flavor because we use fresh country eggs and whole milk and pure sugar and butter and butter and butter.
Nobody can resist Sara Lee.
Introducing Bird's Eye New England-style vegetables. Are they good enough to please even New Englanders? Listen.
Yeah, tasty, all right.
Tastes like my mother.
It's good New England cooking.
That is good. With the string beans and the corn and broccoli. Those croutons put the final touch to it.
Try Bird's Eye New England-style vegetables, one of 5 Americana recipes, only from Bird's Eye.
Bird's Eye really has a winner here.
Work on that.
Stain's gone.
Since I've been adding Clorox 2, my colors look cleaner and brighter. Thanks to you, I've made a bright discovery. I'm going to add Clorox 2 more often.
Discover brightness with Clorox 2.
So you think this is going to be your average Tuesday night casserole, right?
Wrong. Look, I added B&B mushrooms.
Mushrooms are mushrooms.
These are special. They're B&B. Fresh picked, delicious and tender. Broiled in butter and packed in butter broth. No other mushroom gives you the B&B flavor.
They are fantastic.
Yeah.
So are you.
Yeah.
B&B, the butter mushroom for better meals.
Where there is hair, let there be light. New Alberto Light and Fresh Balsam Conditioner. Where it is limp, light gives hair body. Where it is coarse, light gives hair softness. Where it is unruly, light gives hair control. New Alberto Light and Fresh Balsam Conditioner. Where there is hair, let there be light.
That was hard to take.
These days, I prefer things that are easy to take, like dry sack on the rocks, the hearty alternative. This is Frank Gifford to tell you that unlike some drinks, dry sack has a flavor you can really enjoy. A hearty, nutty taste that doesn't get lost on ice. So try the sherry in the sack, dry sack, on the rocks. It's the hearty alternative. Imported from Spain by Julius Weil Sons. Ow! I wish we had an alternative for that play. These days, I do, when it comes to what I drink. Dry sack on the rocks, the hearty alternative. This is Frank Gifford to tell you that, unlike some drinks, dry sack is a flavor you can really enjoy. A hearty, nutty taste that doesn't get lost on ice. So try the sherry in the sack, dry sack, on the rocks. It's the hearty alternative. Imported from Spain by Julius Weil Sons.
You're having fun and building up.
Hey, look who's here! Shoot!
You're thinking about the beer that locked.
How about a beer?
Reach for hams, the sky blue water beer. It's running good.
Man, that's good.
Reach for a hams, it's running good. Running good.
Hey, I thought you restocked with little fish. Here you go. That's the last of them.
You're working and you're building up a thirst.
Hey, you missed all the work.
You're thinking about the beer that lots of people reach for first.
Come on, hop on.
Reach for hams, the sky blue water beer. Reach for a hams, it's running good. Running good.
Holiday greetings from Budweiser. The people who bring you Budweiser wish you and yours the very best of everything this holiday season.
Hey, I thought you restocked with little fish. Here you go. That's the last of them.
You're working and you're building up a thirst.
Hey, you missed all the work.
You're thinking about the beer that lots of people reach for first.
Come on, hop on.
Reach for hams, the sky blue water beer. It's running good. Reach for a hams, it's running good. Running good. You're thinking about the beer that lots of people reach for first.
Have a hams.
Reach for hams, the sky blue water beer. It's running good. Reach for a hams, it's running good. Make it good. Make it good. For a taste of more. It's the Rocky Mountain High. Make it good. Let's go. Here. Hey, come on. Hey.
You're having fun and building up.
Hey, look who's here. Shoot.
You're thinking about the beer that lots of people reach for first.
How about a beer?
Reach for hams, the sky blue water beer. It's running good.
Man, that's good.
Reach for a hams, it's running good. Running good.
Come on, you guys, let's clear this trail before it starts raining.
You're working and you're building up a thirst.
Hey, look who's coming.
You're thinking about the beer that lots of people reach for first.
Have a hams.
Reach for hams, the sky blue water beer. It's running good. Reach for a hams, it's running good. Running good.
Hey, did you see that? Yeah, let's pull in. You're working and you're building up a thirst.
And here comes his buddy.
You're thinking about the beer that lots of people reach for first.
Guess what we got?
Reach for hams, the sky blue water beer. It's running good. Reach for a hams, it's running good. Running good.
Hey, I thought you restocked with little fish. Here you go. That's the last of them.
You're working and you're building up a thirst.
Hey, you missed all the work.
You're thinking about the beer that lots of people reach for first.
Come on, hop on.
Reach for hams, the sky blue water beer. It's running good.
Reach for a hams, it's running good.
Running good.
Wow, this must have been some fire.
Well, we'll get it planted back in about a month.
You're working and you're building up a thirst.
Hey, how you doing?
You're thinking about the beer that lots of people reach for first.
Here you go.
Reach for hams, the sky blue water beer. It's running good.
Reach for a hams, it's running good.
Running good.
Ow! I wish we had an alternative to that play. These days I do, when it comes to what I drink. Dry sack on the rocks, the hearty alternative. This is Frank Gifford to tell you that, unlike some drinks, dry sack has a flavor you can really enjoy. A hearty, nutty taste that doesn't get lost on ice. So try the sherry in the sack, dry sack, on the rocks. It's the hearty alternative. Imported from Spain by Julius Wild Sons. Ow! That was hard to take. These days I prefer things that are easy to take, like dry sack on the rocks, the hearty alternative. This is Frank Gifford to tell you that unlike some drinks, dry sack has a flavor you can really enjoy. A hearty, nutty taste that doesn't get lost on ice. So try the sherry in the sack, dry sack, on the rocks. It's the hearty alternative. Imported from Spain by Julius Wild Sons.
A lot of hams in there. So there was some people noticed that with the hams thing that they would put the tab in their shirt pocket. My guess is because normally people would pull the tab and just put it in the can, and then they would drink, and then there'd be an occasional choking hazard there. That's my guess. but it's running good. Of course, the Hams beer is a beloved animated character. Hams, I think, was Northwest area beer, and some of them made it. I feel like it made it to North Carolina as one of the cheap beers. At my house, we were partial to Black Label and Olympia. So, yeah, that's before Rolling Rock and Yingling kind of made the scene. But thanks for tuning in today. Very much appreciate your eyeballs. Again, if you like what you saw, just hit the like button or the thumbs up button or the subscribe and tell people about what we're doing. You can see us at avgeeks.com. We have other things going on there. I have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week show, which is made up of previous lunchtime shows. You can donate at patreon.com/avgeeks or buy us coffee at ko-fi.com/avgeeks. That dry sack wine, man. What is the deal with that? Ew. Gross. Anyways, thanks again for tuning in. Join us on Monday if you got the day off. It might be an interesting experiment, or it might blow up in my face. There's only one way to find out. So, take care, everybody, and we will see you soon.